You get 1 point by winning going first, 2 points by winning going second. Today I'm facing the second ladder opponent Xerip, playing in the finals of the 2022 Summer 1v1 tournament. In the first game as the first player I was thinking where my opponent could hide his army, and I thought it could be likely this territory. So this is why I placed my army here. My opponent actually placed his troops in 3 different armies and I was accessible to 2 of them. I crushed the first one getting the attacker's advantage of 3 troops, but when it came to the second one I lost even 1 troop more. And I also focused on capturing lots of territories. My opponent got the attacker's advantage of 2 troops here when crushing my army of 5 troops. He captured 2 continents, and also was left with 2 troops which he could have left on any of the top continent borders, but luckily for me he didn't leave on the one I went to invade him through. We were in an equal position, bringing each other to below 18 territories. And I was trying my luck doing those 2v1s but they went unsuccessfully. So probably I shouldn't have even done them. Right here I had to do 5v2 blitz roll which went successfully for me. And my opponent then traded in a set at 3 cards. He captured lots of territories and continents, and since I didn't even have a set at 4 cards, I couldn't do anything. And my opponent scores 2 points. In the second game I didn't predict my opponent's armies, so I went to capture a bunch of territories. And my opponent right here got a very good 13 versus 13 blitz roll, losing even 5 troops fewer than me. He successfully broke through all of my continents and captured lots of territories, and with that he scores 2 more points. In the third game my opponent wasn't accessible to crush my armies, so he captured a bunch of territories and intended to properly guard Antarctica. I've got good manual rolls and blitz roll with my newly gotten troops to break through one of his borders. And then I captured lots of territories, but for some reason I forgot to not capture this territory, and unleashed one of my opponent's army towards myself. But in overall I still ended up holding 2 continents, and with that I scored 2 points. In the fourth game I set up my armies in this way, so that with my opponent crushing one of them, he would unleash the way towards himself to the other one. And with that I will break through his captured continents. But my opponent came up with a very smart play to just manual roll that army without taking over that territory, so my other army would be still blocked from the continents he went for. Luckily for me the manual rolls didn't go that well for him. But I still had to let him hold one of the continents as I didn't have enough accessible troops to break through all of them. My opponent invaded me through all of my captured continents, and then I tried to invade him through his final one as well, but I lost the 73% blitz roll, and my opponent took over the advantage. He scores 1 point. Moving on to France capital conquest. In the 5th game, I decided to cap in one border continent and my opponent decided to place his capital behind my capital. I've got the attacker's advantage of 2 troops when crushing his first army but then lost even 5 troops more when crushing his second army, and that was really terrible for me. It wasn't the attacker's advantage I was expecting to get. In the following turns my opponent was capturing continents, and I was breaking through them. And right here I decided to fortify some troops out from my capital, which was really a blunder because it gave my opponent around 43% chance manual rolls, and at the end switching to the blitz option he successfully took over my capital, scoring 2 points. In the 6th game my opponent capped in this spot, which made me a bit confused because it's not a standard capital, but that was probably because to cover this continent and to always have the access to this territory if I do not want to let him hold his continents. So anyway, I captured my continent hoping that my opponent will go with his biggest army to invade it, but he smartly used his newly gotten troops and still kept the access for his biggest army to invade it in some other turn. He also got the attacker's advantage of 4 troops, which was terrible for me, so that was a misplay on my part for creating his such an opportunity. He then captured and tried to hold a continent next to him, and to counter him, I decided to intend holding a continent for myself as well. I could have of course invade him and hope to get the attacker's advantage back, but the troop-wise I was behind, so I didn't really want to waste my troops. But in the next turn I invaded him, losing the same number of troops as him, and then fortified that army on my capital. My opponent broke through my continent and recaptured his own continent, fortifying some troops out from his capital, and since I was in the troops' disadvantage and the longer game was going to favor him since he would be trading in bigger sets as well, I decided to trade in a set and go for the 50% chance blitz roll, which successfully went into my favor. I score a point. This is how our setup looked in the 7th game. And luckily for me, my opponent didn't get too good of manual rolls when manual rolling my secondary army, and I was able to invade him in the top continent successfully and even actually take over it, getting the attacker's advantage of 3 troops. My opponent recaptured both of his continents, and I invaded both of them again. And then my opponent started playing passively, and I did the same since I knew that the longer gameplay will favor me since I will be trading in bigger sets. In the next rounds nothing too significant happened and we're attacking each other territories back and forth, until right here I could have traded in a set and taken the 80% chance blitz roll. And I knew I should take it, as otherwise the game could lead towards the stalemating side, but I decided to gamble on that and wait. Luckily I've got another opportunity right here and took the 86% blitz roll, scoring 2 points. In the 8th game my opponent capped in one border continent, and to prevent him from holding it I capped behind his capital. He captured a continent for himself, and I did the same. And since he was leaving a lot of troops outside his capital, I thought it might be a very good opportunity to blitz his capital in round 3 with along of using the help of my secondary armies. So I decided to capture that center continent for a hope that he might break through its top territory, so then my both secondary armies would be accessible towards his border. But he still invaded me through the same one, but luckily he used his newly gotten troops on trying to invade me into my continent through the border, which was further from his capital, and failed it. So then, with it being the round 3 as the second player, I went to immediately manual roll his army, getting very good manual rolls, and then switching to the blitz option in my main army. I've got 100% blitz roll to blitz his capital. I scored 2 points, drawing the series. And here are the final tourney results. I finish in the 5th place. And if you want to check out the full tournament series, then click on the playlist at the top right.